Chinese languages came from India. Yes, that was a hook. But there is no exaggeration or deception in my statement. The out of India theory is one of the major theories in the identification of the urheimat, the homeland of the Sino-Tibetan language family, a family where the Chinese languages are a member of. What is a language family? Like organisms, languages evolve traits and characteristics, which passes down to its daughter languages like genetic traits. Linguists are able to use the traits to find related languages and construct a family tree in geography and in time. The spread of a language family are often representative of the spread of the speakers of the languages and its culture. While the movement of peoples does not always line up to the spread of languages, it nonetheless is often broadly correct, especially if supplemented with archaeological and genetic evidences. It is important to note here that people don't usually randomly move around the globe. Movement of people are usually driven by necessity, but an even more important driver of human migration is technology. Imagine living in the harsh environment of the Central Asian steppe, only able to forage and hunt for food. Life would be rather tough, and surplus would be fleeting. But imagine if you have the technology of animal husbandry and possessing the genes that allow for the tolerance of lactose intake as adults, which I don't have. This group of steppe pastoralists, as we call them, would have significant technological, genetic, and cultural advantages over the steppe hunter gatherers, quickly outnumbering them, allowing for the exploitation of further ranges and spreading their genetic markers and languages, displacing groups without the advantage. While the Chinese recorded their history in great details, allowing us to have an accurate picture of the spread of the Sinitic branch of this language family over the past, say, 3,000 years. The movements of these speakers prior to that is, however, shrouded in mystery. There are currently broadly two theories on the potential homeland of the Sino-Tibetan family. The first is the Northern theory. This theory argues that the urheimat of this language family coincides with the rise of the Yellow River millet farmers of the Yangzhou culture approximately 6,000 years ago, which is culturally and genetically antecedent to the early Tao culture and the subsequent Shang dynasty, a timeline which flows neatly into recorded Chinese history. This theory is currently the most widely accepted theory, with the latest publications shown here and here. Specifically, this 2022 publication is a massive cross-discipline research into this area, with considerations from archaeological, climatic, dietary, and genetic evidences. This theory requires the direct ancestors of the Chinese languages to form a central trunk in this family tree, splitting off with the Tibeto-Burman speakers some 4,500 years ago, which has been identified as the Ma Jiayao culture, which split from the Yangshao culture at exactly the time frame due to climatic opportunity. This narrative states that the Yellow River millet farmers would, due to geographical and technological advantages, spread throughout the upper and middle reaches of the Yellow River, eventually spreading to the Yangtze, encountering the two possibly independent progenitors of rice farming. One is the Hmong speakers in the upper Yangtze, and the other the Austronesian speakers at the lower Yangtze. These people then abandoned millet for the higher yielding wet rice farming, and the rest is, as they say, history. Perhaps one of the ways to further strengthen this theory is to catalogue the migration timeline of a broad clade of Sino-Tibetan speakers, specifically those scattered around modern-day Myanmar and northeast India, as this theory requires their arrival time in these places to be less than 3,000 years ago, perhaps even as recently as 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. If the evidence is against this, then this theory will need a rethink. The second theory, the southern theory, argues that the urheimat of the Sino-Tibetan speakers lies either in Sichuan, as proposed by Van Driem, seen here, or in northeast India, as proposed by Blanch, seen here. Both these theories have its primary arguments based in linguistics, arguing that Sinitic should not be considered a main branch of Sino-Tibetan, but rather a sub-branch, with Van Driem placing it as a subgroup after the Western and Eastern split, while Blanch placing it even further away from the trunk, as seen here. Both argued that the traditional classification of Sino-Tibetan was problematic, mainly due to the overemphasis placed on Chinese, Burmese, and Tibetan, as these high cultures left considerable written records, while main trunks of this family never even developed writing until relatively recently. Of specific interest is Blanch's argument, stating that if this family of languages speakers initially spread out due to advanced farming techniques, as seen in the Yellow River urheimat theory, then words associated with farming should have cognates across the various daughter languages, and reconstructing ancestral words should be possible. Yet, this effort did not yield results. In the contrary, cognates were found and reconstructed for words associated with a jungle hunting-gathering lifestyle. Words like sago palm and various descriptive words describing livestocks. Both the southern theories requires the urheimat timeline to be pushed further back to 9,000 years ago. And while Van Driem's Sichuan urheimat may not be far-fetched timeline-wise, the geographical distance for Blanch and the hurried adaptation to intensive farming required to tie up with the archaeological evidences of Yangshao in the Yellow River seems rather rushed. Most importantly, the problem with both southern theories is that they are limited in scope to linguistic parameters, which can be fraught with difficulties in the absence of genetic and archaeological support, which the northern theory seems to have. Such is the rigor of academia, with opinions deduced from data instead of from emotions or preferred narrative. Work continues in this area, and I expect to find more surprises in store in the years to come in the search for the homeland of the Sino-Tibetan languages.